going on, YouTube? Today we're going to take a deep dive into the Brimstone Orc. We're going to talk through the best builds, including the best budget builds for this sad little guy. Okay, I think we all know the Brimstone Orc. That's the new pet that came out with our G5 infantry heroes, Elnar and Joran here. We've been fighting these a lot in our KVK. You can see my Joran's not built out yet, just 5111, not even max level. I'm not going to have him, built out in time for this KVK, but obviously I'll have him for the next KVK. But, our opponents have had a lot of very good built out, Joran Elnars. They've had a lot of very good built out Brimstone Orcs, and I will tell you the pet is performing very well. Of course, the pet had a little bit of a controversy, a little bit of a nerf, or maybe a fix to its skills here. We'll talk about that in a minute. However, I do think this is a very good pet. Now, let me talk through you exactly where I see this pet in the meta right now. Okay, it is obvious to me with high confidence that Elnar and Joran are going to be the new Rally Garrison meta, going forward for a while now. Probably until we get the G6 infantry heroes. Look, I'm prepared to learn something. I'm prepared for someone to come around and invent some new Rally Garrison pair, that breaks the meta, that changes this up. But right now in my KVK, based on what I've seen, based on what I'm seeing in other KVKs, I think we can safely assume that these guys are going to dominate the Rally Garrison meta for a while. Why is that important? Okay, the Brimstone Orc in the Rally Garrison meta is the pet you want to use with these two new infantry heroes, in particular Joran. And so it has a very strong role for the Rally Garrison fight, right? This pet is hands down the best pet for that, Rally Garrison fight. What about the open field with these two heroes? I do think the Brimstone Orc for the open field is still the best pet for these two new heroes. However, since the change to blow off, its advantage over a Venom Lizard has shrunk substantially. All right. Simply for the open field, the difference between a good Venom Lizard and a good Brimstone Orc, it's pretty small at this point. Now, like I said, for the Rally Garrison meta, no, hands down, you want the Brimstone Orc. However, if you're building, these new heroes out, and you say, hey, do I want to take the time to invest in a new pet? And you know that you're never going to be a Rally Garrison lead for your alliance, I think you're fine sticking with your Venom Lizard. I don't think you have to build out this new pet if you don't want to. Now, like I said, at the end of the video, we'll talk through some budget builds, some options to build this thing out a little bit cheaper. But just know that, hey, if you're not the Rally Garrison lead, a Venom Lizard's still going to do perfectly fine for you. Okay, so I've talked a little bit. I've mentioned a couple times that this pet's been changed. There's a nerf, or maybe it's a fix, maybe a controversy. What is that? Okay, if you look at the talent skill here, it does a couple things. The secondary effect here, after a successful parry, you do damage to whatever target legion you can do. And this also, by the way, triggers off the intense blow off, pet shop skill, which is another damage source. This secondary effect, when it was first released at certain star levels, performed like the Venom Lizard does, and it basically would reflect damage onto anything that hits you. Now, it can only trigger once per second, okay, but there was no range limitations. You didn't have to be targeting it, whatever. Now, maybe it was a nerf, maybe it was a fixed, whatever, but they changed it so that parry, the secondary effect, will now only do damage to the legion you're targeting. Okay, for the open field, that's a pretty substantial power decrease, called a nerf, whatever, because if you're just walking in the open field and 5, 10 ranged legions are hitting you, now the parry effect's not going to go off on them. For the Rally Garrison meta, it's not a big deal because you're going to be targeting the Garrison, or you're going to be targeting the Rally. So this change doesn't really impact the Rally Garrison meta. However, it does substantially weaken the Brimstone Orc when it comes to the open field. Okay, so with that in mind, a couple things to keep in mind here. I've mentioned that this pet is the pet for the new heroes. It really is the pet for Joran because Joran has the parry mechanic. This pet really depends on the parry mechanic. So if you're using the two new heroes together, use the Brimstone Orc. No question there. If you're not using them together, in particular if you're using Eleanor with something else, I really think you should consider something other than the Brimstone Orc, if you have it built out to an equal or better level, right? For example, You can see I don't have Joran built out right now, but my Elnar's, 6 stars maxed out, awakened, everything. What I've been doing this season for the garrison is I've been using Elnar as the garrison captain with my Kuma. Where's he at? My Kuma as the deputy. And because I'm doing that, I don't use the Brimstone Orc as a pet. I'll use the Moss Rock, or the Moss Rock instead. Now my Moss Rock's very good, and my Brimstone is still very much a work in progress, so that's part of it. But I think even if this Brimstone was built out, because if I wasn't using Joran, I would go with the other pet. Okay, so let's talk through the builds on this pet. The first thing I'll say is on my last video, I sort of speculated that I thought Fierce Attack might be better. I've completely changed my mind on that. I think the Counter-Strike package, specifically Counter-Strike and Advanced Counter-Strike, is what you want in this pet. There are 2 reasons for this. The first is the aforementioned change to blow off, gives you less swarm protection, and particularly less swarm protection at range. Counter-Strike and in particular Advanced Counter-Strike give you a little bit more swarm protection, so I think that's very good. You want the Counter-Strike package. The other thing I'll say is the Fierce Attack package. If you look at Fierce Attack itself, it triggers whenever your deputy, it has to be your deputy, casts a rage skill. Okay, here's the deal. Joran has a rage skill, right here, no issues. Elnar doesn't. Elnar's first skill is a passive skill. It just goes off every 3 normal attacks. She will literally never do a rage skill. And so if she's the deputy and you have a pet with Fierce Attack will never trigger. Okay. Now my long-term plan with these 2 is to use Elnar as my garrison captain with Joran as the deputy. And then when I'm in the open field, and maybe when I'm rallying, I'll use Joran as the primary and Elnar as the deputy. Okay, that's great. But if I do that, that means when I have these 2 paired together in the open field or when they're leading the rally, the Fierce Attack package would not work, and so I'd have wasted value there. I don't want wasted value, most of the time, right? Garrison will occur far less often than, open field rallying does. And so I'm not going to put the Fierce Attack package on because it would be wasted value a lot. Now, if you're never going to have Elnar as the deputy and you know that right now, all right, maybe consider Fierce Attack, but I think that's going to be pretty rare that you know that you'll never be the deputy. And I think the Counter-Strike package, even independent of that, there's some pretty compelling arguments for that. Okay, so if we want the Counter-Strike package, you can see Counter-Strike. I don't have Advanced Counter-Strike here. Just pretend it's right in that last slot there. Like I said, I'm not using this pet right now, so I haven't spent the Amber just yet. Those are 2 skills. Obviously, we have the Talent skill. What else do we want? Well, I think it goes without question that you want the Crit Attack package. That's Fatal Bite, that's Angry Roar, and that's Blood Roar. Okay, now we're up to 6 skills. We have 2 skill slots left, and really 3 skills competing for those 2 skill slots. The first thing I'll talk about is Intense Blow Off. This gives you yet another damage source whenever Blow Off does damage. Now, like I said, that's weaker than it used to be, but still it hits the main target, so that's good. That's perfectly awesome for the Rally Garrison. Not quite as good for the open field. I think it is a good skill, but no longer as much to have as I previously said if you're not the Rally Garrison lead. If you are the Rally Garrison lead, I think Intense Blow Off is a must-have, period. Okay, if you're not, you can choose something else. You can see I have Tooth and Claw here. Tooth and Claw here is just fine. There's no issue with it. It's going to perform fine. It's cheaper than these other things, but it is weaker, particularly in that Rally Garrison fight. The last thing to consider is the Amber skill, Advanced Blow Off. Like before, I haven't put this on my pet because I'm not using it right now, but when I do deploy it, I will use the Amber to, level this up. This makes Blow Off do more damage, like Intense Blow Off. That's slightly nerfed by the nerf to Blow Off itself. So is it good? Like I said, it's perfect for the Rally Garrison. You want it there. If you're just using this field as an open field pet, 100% open field, I actually think you skip Advanced Blow Off. I don't think it's worth the Amber if you're not going to put this pet into the Rally Garrison fight. And what I'd put in place is Tooth and Claw in that scenario. Okay. Players have asked me, hey, is there a good budget build for this pet? And I actually think there is a pretty tricky budget build here that's not very expensive, that's going to improve the performance of these heroes in the field by a good bit. Now, it's not as good as the power build that we just went over, but it's a lot less expensive. And if you're a free-to-play, low-spend player who's going to be using these heroes, I actually think this is a pretty good build for you. Now, I'm not going to go over in detail all their skills here. Look, plenty of other videos have done that. But the thing to understand about these heroes is they do a lot of skill damage, but it's not very big skill damage. It's like a lot of instances of small skill damage. And they also do a lot of extra counterattacks, right? So they do a lot of these things. They're in any one instance, they're not very overwhelming, but they do it frequently, and it kind of adds up over time. The other thing to keep in mind is these skills sort of internally synergize, where counterattacks help skill damage, and skill damage helps counterattacks. And I think there's a way to use the pet to sort of increase that synergy to make these effects even more powerful. And here's basically the way I recommend you do this. Okay, obviously you start with the talent skill. The talent skill is good, right? The talent skill gives you a 5% parry increase regardless of the star level. So just by having this pet, you're making Jordan's parry mechanic 5% better. That's pretty good in and of itself. I do think you want Counter Strike. Counter Strike is great because whenever Counter Strike triggers, it counts as an additional Legion counterattack, right? This isn't pet damage, this is Legion damage. And as you star up Counter Strike and as the endurance on your pet gets higher, the counter attack from Counter Strike, it does more damage. But the 50% chance that occurs at every star level, the additional Legion counterattack occurs at every star level. And so this in and of itself gives you those additional counterattacks from your Legion, which trigger all those beautiful synergies. I think Counter Strike itself is a must have. Once you have those two, what I think you want to do is add both the hero enhancement for skill damage and the hero enhancement for counterattack damage. So skill damage, that's the two things that look like eyes, that's pursuit, predation, and track and hunt. Those increase the crit rate of your hero skill damage. Now look, these aren't very, and you're not gonna get a ton of crit out of this, but keep in mind, you're not doing like one big skill damage every rage cycle. You're doing a lot of instances of low levels of skill damage all the time. And then you have Beast Mark, which increases the crit damage on your skill damage. Again, not a ton. Your base crit rate's 150%. This is gonna increase it a few percent. And then you have a similar package for like the counterattack hero enhancement. Hit back increases the crit rate. Same thing as blood for blood. And then Swift Revenge increases the crit damage when you do counterattacks. Again, this isn't huge percentages, but like think about yourself in the open field. You're going to be getting hit so many times that's going to trigger all these counterattacks. You're also, the hero skills are going to be doing skill damage. It triggers additional counterattacks. A lot of great synergy. These things aren't game breaking, but they're pretty cheap. Even a free-to-play low spender can get these up to 2 stars without much difficulty. And they're going to give you some additional percentage, additional edge in the field. I think this is a pretty effective budget build here. Now, if you don't like this package, to enhance your counterattacks, to enhance your hero skill damage, the other way to go is increase survivability. I think that's a valid option, particularly since the pet has such good endurance. And really what you want to be looking for there is Terror Barrier and Bristles, which will increase your attack mitigation and defense respectively. I don't think Heart Wall is great. A shield isn't really what you're looking for on this pet. And you already have Counter Strike on there, so you only have 2 choices for endurance. I think Terror Barrier and Bristles are sort of the way you want to go if you want to focus on survivability over sort of additional counterattack, additional hero skill damage. But I do think, based on the hero skills, this is sort of the superior build when it comes to the budget build for this pet. Summing up, I do think the Brimstone Orc is a good pet. Not quite as good as it when it first came out, but it's certainly got a place in the meta. I do think this is the pet of choice for the G5 infantry heroes when you are in the rally garrison fight. And because I think these heroes are going to be the pinnacle of the rally garrison fight for a while, I think you're going to see a lot of Brimstone Orcs. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. And until next time, you stay classy, Belleron.